Welcome to the July meeting. We're now progressing to the next stage of doing this Zoom meeting, and that is live streaming. We had a meeting last Friday with a chap from the MG Car Club that has set it up for them. And we will, even when we get back to the club rooms, we'll be intending to live stream all our meetings so that for people, particularly for the country people, because there's been quite a bit of feedback coming through saying how much they appreciate being able to take part, if you like, in the meeting and seeing what's going on. So it'll involve putting a camera up in the club rooms and linking in with our audio system, and hopefully when we sort it, the CMC will pay for it, because obviously it'll be of an advantage to the JAG Club and the Sprite Club as well as us. So I'll keep you posted about that. We're unable to get going with social events, as you would imagine, at the moment. However, we are having discussions about possibly forming some smaller social groups that can operate and run their own events or their own social gatherings in their particular area. And Rod's been looking at this and seeing how we can break the areas up, and so that everyone can get an opportunity to meet socially. It's a bit like we have been doing for quite some time with Gordon and the social events that the Peninsula group have. We'd like to take that to another level and have groups operating in different areas, probably Geelong and the Northwest group, which has been going for a while, but operating intermittently, having events intermittently. So we'll let you know about that, and I hope to have a bit more in the magazine about it to let you know what's going on. There have been some apologies tonight. Simon and Gardner and Mandy couldn't make it tonight, and Mick Smith is an apology too. If there are any more apologies, maybe you could email them to David, to the secretary, so that they can go into the minutes when we have them, when we do them. There's not much started on the competition front. The first event will be MSCA at Sandown on the 19th of July. Rod, did you want to say something about that?
Well, it's still on. We haven't heard that it's not. If it is on, it's myself and Richard Stevens in the 104 and David Kelly in the 104. Only three of us. It's understandable. Just people are unsure whether to get going again. So we have a Zoom meeting next Monday night. But there was a round at the Super Sprint Championship cancelled last weekend. Not sure why. And yeah, we just have to go from day to day at the moment, don't we? So, and there's nothing from the Alpha Club about the Winton Relay. They're obviously working hard on how they're going to run it and whether they can run it. So, yep, we look forward to 2.5 weeks from now having a run at Sandown, but let's just wait and see what happens.
Okay. Thank you, Rod. Now, tonight's activity, if you like to call it an activity, is a interview or a talk through with Bill Ingham about the restoration of his 104, which was done 2 years ago now, Bill, would it be? 2?
Yeah,
whether it's
I'm just glad I got back online. The iPad wouldn't work, and now I'm okay. So yeah, no, it took about 5 years to restore, Terry. So I think that was is that your question?
Yes, yeah. Well, I asked. It finished 2 years ago.
Oh yeah, sorry, I beg your pardon. Yeah, about that. Yeah.
Okay. So Bill Metcalf is going to take over and talk it through with Bill Ingham, and Gordon will put the photos up, and we'll, if there's time at the end, we can ask some questions. So over to you, Bill Metcalf.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Well, hi everyone. Tonight I've got to talk to Bill Ingham about his magnificent BN1. I spoke to a few people about this, and apparently it's the only Healy down here in Victoria that has gold class. So that's quite an achievement, really. But before we get started, I just want to tell everyone or thank Gordon Lindner and Terry for doing all this. You wouldn't believe the amount of effort that goes into it over the last 3 days, and thanks very much, guys. It's really great. Bill, there's the finished car on screen now. Bill Ingham?
Yes, Bill, good day.
How are you, Bill?
Good evening, Bill. I can hear you.
You can hear me?
I can hear you. How's Jeannie? Good?
She's fine, thanks. Tell us a little bit about on the next frame, Bill. Gordon will show us the next frame of how it originally came to you, and just start us off with a bit of talk about the car itself, how it come to you, where it come from, and and as it develops, we'll go in picture by picture.
Okay, well, it didn't come to me like that. It came with lots of bits missing, and we had to start sourcing things, and it was a whole process of deciding what to do with the car from the very beginning, really. And when I first got what was left of the car, I really didn't know what to do with it. And but I got it anyway because it was a Healy. It was a BN1. I'd already had the other car now for some years by then, and I thought, well, I'll restore.
Sorry. Hey.
Yeah. If you want to go right back to the very beginning, the car was imported into this country from the States. It was a left-hand drive North American export, which is what a lot of them were. Most of them, I think, were. And I heard it was for sale eventually in Melbourne. I approached the person and I bought the bones of it really off that guy, and then stored it in the shed for some years as we made more progress on the other car, and we got into the Healy racing scene and the Interstate Challenge, which was going fairly strong at that time, and that was more closely followed by the Bathurst race that everybody's familiar with now, and we focused our attention more on that than on this car. But then it became obvious later on that that it wasn't going to happen for me, and so it was sold on to my son Mark, and he had it there for some years. After the Healy racing was over, I looked at it languishing in the shed, and I thought I would really like to do a Healy properly, a full proper restoration on a Healy, whereas the other car was was virtually turned into a race car and with a running restoration. But this was an opportunity to do something, and I still then didn't know what to do. And I thought that perhaps we'll make it a racer. That seemed to be fairly prevalent at the time, the thinking around that side of things. But I started to think later on that, no, well, perhaps because it's an early car and relatively early, I mean, it's by no means the oldest Healy in Australia, but it's an early one. It's body number 449.
Yeah.
Sorry, big one.
Yeah, that's right. It was October 53 and car 449. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. And so I thought, well, perhaps it would be nice to do a really good restoration on a car and just do it right, do it the way they were. I mean, we've seen a lot of modified cars and they're fabulous cars. I love them, and it certainly makes them go better. But I think the point about it is, when I say better, I think people who have got a modified car could perhaps have another think and drive this car, because this car, when you hop in it and start it up, it's as if you drove it out of the showroom. That's the way it was. There's nothing changed. We did everything we could to make this car the same as if you were going to drive it home the day you bought it. And it just absolutely staggers me just how good this thing is. I mean, it's sitting on its 48-spoke wheels. It's on its 590/15 Dunlop tyres, Dunlop road speed tyres, just the way you would have got it, the way it would have come. And it is very, very good to drive. And I think, well, yeah, radial tyres, they're going to make it a bit better. But boy, it's amazing. It's amazing. So
here's in the spray booth at Chris Lamrock's.
Okay. So let's just go back a step. When I decided to take it or buy it back from Mark, which is what I did, we decided that we would make it original. And this is what we did with it. The chassis, there's nothing modified on the chassis. There's no gusseting or struts or anything like that people might think makes them better. I think it does if you're going to race them, but for driving around on the road doesn't make much difference. We decided to keep it in the same colour scheme as original, which is the carmine red and black trim. Mark did a fabulous job painting the chassis and painting it in Chris Lamrock's brand new spray booth up there at where it is, on which he used to live. Now he lives in Yea, wise man, and I can't pronounce the name of the place, but it was in his brand new spray booth that we turned bright red for him, and that includes all his new equipment, his helmet and his guns and everything. I couldn't leave it like that, so we had to clean it up for him. But the chassis was painted red there, and then Mark brought it back and then kept working on it. And I guess at the end of the day, it would seem like what I did to the car was minimal. And my involvement in the car sounds minimal, but it's not. I did a lot of bits and pieces, but mostly research to make sure that we're getting everything was correct on the car. Mark did all the aluminium work and body work. Yeah.
Touching on that, Bill, you spoke about, a couple of people who helped you overseas, and that was,
well, I had a fair bit of help from overseas. Initially, I think Greg Kilmartin put me on to a guy over there called Rich Chrysler, who's actually in Canada, I think he was. And And he was an absolute source of information on these early cars. And in fact, he had one or two himself. And Rich unfortunately passed on. But I thought, well, that's the end of that. But I was lucky enough to find through the Concours registry over there a chap called Roger Moment, who was involved in restoration of these early cars, and he was another well of information on what's right for the car and what's not right for the car. And I think the important thing about that is, I mean, I got not forgetting that I got a lot of help from our own club members here, a lot of help, and but Roger was able to show me a lot of things that perhaps we don't have here, and that is that the accessibility to information on the early cars, you know, like say the first 1,000 cars, and they were quite different in a lot of little ways. And that has to be right. If you're going to put it in the concourse and you're going to try and get a gold certificate, you're going to have to get it right, and even right down to the small detail, which I can tell you a bit more later. But Roger was able to show me these things because the Americans had so many of the early cars there. And he was able to show me photographs of untouched, very early cars, like body number 120 or that sort of thing. And that was absolutely fantastic for me because it showed me what to do. You know.
Also, Bill, you did say that Roger Moment was actually producing bits and pieces for these cars.
Well, he made a few. He made a few things. He you know, things like the rubber boots on the tie rod ends on the early ones. You can't get them anywhere. They're not available. I was able to get enough of the original. They're taken off their own patterns. There's that. The ducting from the heater up to the air vents, the windscreen vents, or defroster vents, if you like. He was actually making them. You know, the leather straps for the spare wheel, that sort of stuff. He was making all of that stuff. Not sure if it's still available now, but I was able to get that, and it's all the correct stuff, or made to the correct stuff. Yeah.
Gordon just flashed on the screen the motor going into the car for the first time. The motor and gearbox was all done by, I think you said Peter Watts.
Yeah, I think
he was right into it.
Yeah, Mark had a lot more to do with that side of it than I did. That it could be because bearing in mind that, you know, we've had this car for, I think it's about 25 years. And a lot of these things took place over that time. And I believe, Peter put the motor together. I think Bruce might have done the gearbox. I'm not sure now, can't remember. I think he did. Could be right, but it's everything works beautifully. Absolutely beautifully. It sounds great. Yeah. It's got a lovely crackle. If you're pulling up one of the big hills around here and put your foot down a little bit, it's got a lovely crackle out of the exhaust. I don't know why, but it has. It's not hotted up or anything. Yeah.
Anything that takes the inside cabin background noise is great, isn't it? It takes it away from that. The hubs, original hubs for the 4-bolt hubs. As you say, everything was original as per manufacturer as well.
Well, all of that suspension stuff there, you're looking at the brake back plates and all of that stuff. That's all original part of the car. Yeah, that's been as cleaned and painted. Yeah. These are the rubber tie rod end boots that Roger made for me. And what's also interesting, I hope it's interesting for people, is that the foam seal or dust seal around the bottom of you can see there at the bottom of the idler box. Yeah, so I can see that on the bottom of the idler box there's a dark grey or greeny grey looking dust seal there. That's the correct colour. They were not on this car anyway. I don't know what they did later. I don't want to know. But this car was that colour.
Instead of the white as it is now.
Yeah, it was grey like that, or grey-green colour.
Yeah.
I actually made them myself. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
And then you've got the horns on the bottom of the radiator here as well.
Yep.
That looks pretty good.
Yep. Yeah. That is, yes, that's the bottom of the radiator. And the horn, which is that Volvo colour that we've been talking about too recently. All of this, it's interesting that, because all of the engine bay wiring clips were all hand painted red on these cars.
Really?
Yeah, all the wiring clips were all in the engine bay were all hand painted red, and I laboured over whether that one should be painted red or, because it's not actually in the engine bay, so I left it zinc plated. So
okay, we've now got a shot
kind
of
detail.
the door catch now, Bill. As distinct from.
Yeah, as distinct from the later ones, that the backing plate there for the door catch on the later cars, and anyone with 100 BM2 or something like would know that theirs are not like that. Now, this is correct. This is how it was on this model car.
Yeah.
A narrow thing like that. Mm.
Your original tool set?
Original tool kit, yeah.
Close original?
Yeah. Well, I think I was missing one thing. Can't remember now what it was, but our esteemed judges may still have a record of what it was that I was missing, but I was missing something. It wasn't much. It was some little thing. But that's the Shelley jack that was correct for the car. Yep.
And we're looking at the side screens, Bill.
Yeah, the side screens, well, they're unique to the first. I'm not quite sure how many, but the cars they started producing the cars in May '53, and this type of side screen went up to November. Now, how many cars they'd made it by November? I'm not a historian. I'm never going to ever try to be a historian, but I'm sure some of the historians that are watching this, if there's any, they'll know exactly how many cars would have had this type of side screen. We made the new perspex out of patterns from the old perspex, which had obviously, no perspex lasts too good that long.
And these come from Steve Pike. You were saying Steve had those original ones.
Yeah, I got those sides, the original ones, or an original type set of Steve, and then we restored them. And I mean, again, Mark did a magnificent job on most of this stuff, and did a beautiful job of getting them. And these cars are all virtually hand built, and so the side screen has to fit the windscreen properly. You take it off this car, put it on another one, it may not be perfectly fitted. So Mark had a lot of work to do with them and getting that right. And then we got the new perspex made, and they came up absolutely sensational.
And the roof bow, did that come from David Thompson as well?
The what? Sorry,
the wooden roof, the roof bow, the wooden roof bow. Did that come from Dave Thompson?
Which was that at the? Where is that? Is that the front one? Is it?
Yeah.
I think it did. Yeah. Ask David. Is he there?
David Thompson.
I think it did.
No, not there. He was.
Must be just you and me, Bill.
Okay. So now we've got the car coming in for judging.
Yeah, I'd say from that photo, that's the judges, you know.
Oh, there's David.
Yeah, I'm here.
G'day, David.
Yeah, hi, mate. Hi, Bill.
Did you make the hood blow, David?
Pardon?
Can you remember making it for Bill?
Yes, yes, I made it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's okay. We just wanted to know that.
Oh, no complaints, David. I'm not looking for a.
No, there's no warranty on it.
No warranty.
Okay, so this is a car coming in for
No, as
judging.
long as
You've
it
got
still fits.
Peter Nankervis, Peter Jackson, Ian Nankervis, Peter Jackson were a couple of the judges.
Try Keith Nankervis.
That's what I said, Keith.
I thought you said Ian or something else. Never mind. Bill. I'm going to give you a hard time. You're not going to get out of this too easy.
Okay. I should really say at this stage to everybody that Bill's thinking of going into television, but we told him he wouldn't fit the bill. Okay. Tell us about the judging, Bill.
Well, the judging was interesting because I had to bring it down to Judge Jackson. I think what did we call him the other day? Judge Jackson and Judge Nankervis. They were all waiting there anxiously, and Judge Kent, John Kent, he was there. We flew Patrick Quinn down from Sydney for the day at incredible expense. That's when you could do that, you know. And there's Judge Quinn there and Judge Kent, and they did everything they could, those guys, to make sure this car did not get a gold certificate. They had it up on the hoist for 2 hours. Now, can you imagine putting a Healy up on the hoist for 2 hours and going under it in such incredible detail? And they could only find two things wrong. And those two things that they found wrong were my mistake in leaving home the original old type fuses. I left them home and they were still sitting on the bench when I got back home that night. And so I would have lost points there. I'm sure they took points off. The other thing that they found with their magnifying glasses was that I'd used the old bleeder nipples on the brakes, but also sitting alongside the fuses was a brand new set of bleeder nipples. So I'm sure I lost a lot of points there. They never told me how many points I lost, but I'm sure it doesn't matter that much. But this is the kind of detail that they go to with these things, and I think at the end of the day, they did a pretty good job, the boys. Yeah.
Maybe they were looking for a bribe, Bill.
Well, they were looking in the wrong place. Going back to your photo that you had before, that would have been at the end of the judging, and it would have been me taking Judge Nankervis for a ride, because you have to show to them that it actually goes, you know, that the car drives, and you can, you know, you can't. It's not just a trailer. What I've heard reference to things like trailer queens. This car's not. It's already done a few thousand Ks, and it's absolute delight to drive. Beautiful light steering, good brakes. I can't fault the thing, to be honest. I love it. Yeah, it's great. You did mention also before, you tell me if I'm talking too much, Bill.
You're talking too much.
if you mentioned before that it's the only car in Victoria's got a gold certificate, and I'm hoping that others will come along and follow, but there's 2 other cars up in New South Wales that got gold certificates, and when they were finished, the owners sold them on, and where they are now, I've got no idea.
I believe that was Colin. They were Colin Rules cars.
Yeah, Colin did. Oh no, well, one was Colin, and I'm not sure who did Brian Drew's car, but Brian Drew's car now has also been sold on by the person who had it judged. So where they've gone, but I can tell you now, mine won't be. Mine stays.
Okay.
Yeah, someone else will sell this.
I think Terry, just before we finish the interview with Bill, we try to do a bit of a surprise for you and hook up with Roger Moment over in the USA. But Roger's 83, and also 2 o'clock in the morning just didn't suit him. But we're going to record this and send him the video of this interview. Is there anything you would like to say to Roger personally?
Well, of course, yeah, there is. It definitely is, and I'd
only
say
got a couple of minutes.
No pressure.
No.
Of course, but if Roger does see this, then he has my utmost thanks for all of the help and support that he gave me, and I couldn't believe it whenever I asked a question, it was returned with photographs and enthusiastic detail, sometimes even the same day, or very quickly thereafter. And I think that it's just fantastic, the enthusiasm and support that you get from Healy people really all around the world. And I think that I thank Roger for that. And I think it's also important to mention, I've only got a minute or whatever you've given me, but I think that what's important is that we need to thank our own local blokes in the club that maybe even watching this. I mean, I've got no idea who's watching this, but yeah. I only see you, Bill, which is not very good. Okay.
We'll pass up on that one. Now, has anyone got any questions they'd like to ask Bill? Anyone got any questions I'd like to shoot off to Bill quickly? No?
Just to fill you in.
Job well done, Bill.
Those,
what do you say?
The other 2 gold car.
Job well done.
The cars that got gold class in New South Wales, one finished up in the Gosford Motor Museum. That was the Colin Rule car, which actually went into liquidation, and they auctioned off all the cars that were in there. But so I don't know where. Probably Pat Quinn would know, but I don't know where that Colin Rule car finished up.
No, I don't know either.
The other 4-cylinder car, I've got no idea about that either. But
hopefully it would have ended up in the museum in the Netherlands.
Possibly. I don't know.
Let's hope so.
I don't think it did, but
I don't know. Let's hope so, though.
No.
All right. Well, that's it for me. Thanks very much, Terry and Gordon, and thanks very much, Bill, for the interview.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Bill. As always.
Zoom this week, MGM next week.
No, this is a one-off.
Actually, surprising the way these Zoom meetings go, I've been contacted by the British Columbia Club, and they're having I'm going to a Zoom meeting tonight, which is going to be quite late at night for me, but they're having a Zoom meeting with a whole lot of other countries, even South Africa are joining in on it. I don't know how many there's going to be at it, but it was instigated really by British Columbia, but it's sort of been taken over now by South Africa. and they're the ones that have instigated the meeting. And there's some of the Queensland club members are joining in, and so I don't know what to expect really, but it's going to be about midnight tonight. So I'll tell you about it. We are intending to have another Zoom meeting in between this and our normal August meeting date, and we're working on a few alternatives to see what we can come up with. Bill Metcalf's got a couple of ideas, and so we'll see what we have. But you'll get the email about it and the link, and all you have to do is, as you know, is join in, and we'll hopefully have something a bit interesting for you. That'll probably be in about 2 weeks' time. So,
well, I've actually contacted Terry Wills-Cook, and Terry's he's in the middle. He's not very happy because he's got to clean about 5 or 6 of his cars in his garage. But I've told him he's got 2 weeks to do that. But he's got some amazing cars. And he's pretty adept to Zoom meetings because he's a director of about 11 companies. But he's going to walk us around his garage and show us all his cars. So that should be very interesting. It also gets our country members interested as well. And talking about country members too, we just should say to everybody the passing of Richard Fearon. Richard Fearon died Tuesday afternoon of a heart attack. So we hope that Robin's coping okay with it. But yeah, that was a bit sad to hear that.
Okay, now we've got less than 1 minute to go. So if you want to say goodbye, that's about it.
Goodbye.
Yeah,
okay.
It's less than 1 minute now.
I must thank Gordon. I must thank Gordon for instigating this tonight, because I was going to try and do it, but I needed Gordon's expertise to pull it off. So thank you very much, Gordon, for doing it. And thank you to everyone that Zoomed in tonight. And we look forward to seeing you in about a fortnight's time.
Yeah.
And
Good night, everybody. Good night.
Thanks, Gordon.
Good night. Here we go. Good night.
Thanks,
Good night. Good night, everybody.
Good
Thank
night.
you all.